What if I told you the Borgias, the family behind the Vatican's darkest scandals, once hosted a banquet that became the talk of Rome? According to contemporary court records, Johann Burchard claimed 50 courtesans were present, though later historians debate the accuracy. It wasn't just a party, it was a display of power that unsettled even the most jaded elites. By the end of that night, sudden illness sparked rumors of poisoning, though malaria was also widespread in Rome. We'll circle back to August 1503, when that same Pope, Alexander VI, would collapse under mysterious illness. But before we get to that fateful dinner, let's trace how a family of outsiders managed to rise so high in the first place. By the way, if you like my work and the dark side of the history, hit the subscribe button and the bell. We make a video every week. The story of the Borgias' rise starts with Alfonso de Borja, born in 1378 in Zativa, near Valencia, Spain. He first built his reputation as a law professor at the University of Lleida, and as envoy to Alfonso V of Aragon, roles that paved his way into the higher ranks. Alfonso was valued for his sharp legal mind and diplomatic skill, which made him indispensable to the Aragonese crown. As a trusted advisor, he handled sensitive negotiations and complex church matters, earning respect that would eventually open doors in Rome. By 1444, Alfonso was named a cardinal. At an age when most men were thinking of retirement, he was just getting started. When he moved to Rome, he Romanized his name from Borgia to Borgia as he settled at the papal court, signaling a new chapter for himself and his family. In the context of Rome's deeply entrenched Italian power struggles, Alfonso appeared to be a neutral candidate with few enemies, which helped him secure the papacy as Calixtus III in 1455. For many of the city's established families, he seemed like a safe choice, an outsider who wouldn't upset the balance of power, but that perception would not last. Calixtus III's election as pope was a shock to the Roman establishment, and his actions quickly made waves. As a Spaniard in an Italian city, he faced suspicion and hostility. The tension only grew when he began to promote his family using the power of his office. Calixtus appointed his nephews Rodrigo and Pedro Luis to prominent positions. Rodrigo became a cardinal and was soon named vice-chancellor of the church, while Pedro Luis was made commander of Castel Sant'Angelo. These moves were seen as blatant nepotism, and while favoring relatives wasn't new in Rome, the scale and brazenness of Calixtus's actions drew sharp criticism. Romans, already wary of foreigners, saw the Borgias as outsiders grabbing power at their expense. Despite the backlash, Rodrigo Borgia thrived in his new role. He was charismatic and adept at reading the political landscape, quickly becoming a fixture in the Vatican's corridors of power. Calixtus recognized his nephew's ambition and skill, and Rodrigo wasted no time building up his own base of support. He amassed wealth, forged alliances, and developed a reputation for enjoying the pleasures of life, a fact that didn't go unnoticed. In 1460, after a particularly raucous banquet in Siena, Pius II rebuked Rodrigo, warning him to curb his extravagance. But even papal disapproval did little to dampen Rodrigo's drive. He understood how to operate in a system where lines between spiritual duty and political ambition were often blurred. When Calixtus III died in 1458, Rodrigo lost his most powerful protector but managed to maintain his position as cardinal and vice-chancellor. He adapted quickly, surviving the shifting alliances and rivalries that defined Vatican politics. Over the next few decades, Rodrigo quietly expanded his influence. He acquired estates, secured lucrative benefices, and cultivated relationships with powerful figures across Italy and beyond. His reputation for bending the rules did not slow him down. If anything, it made him a valuable ally, or a dangerous enemy. Rodrigo's long campaign for the papacy culminated in August 1492, when he was elected Pope Alexander VI. His election was dogged by rumors of bribery and vote-buying, stories that circulated widely among his critics. Whether exaggerated or not, these rumors reflected the perception of the Borgias as masters of manipulation and backroom deals. Once in power, Alexander VI wasted no time in advancing his family's interests. He appointed his son Cesare a cardinal and brought other relatives to Rome, rewarding them with offices and wealth. This pattern of nepotism, while not unique, was carried out with a scale and openness that set the Borgias apart. The Borgia family's rapid ascent from Spanish outsiders to the pinnacle of Vatican power was marked by ambition, calculated alliances, and a willingness to ignore the usual boundaries of propriety. Their name became synonymous with both political brilliance and scandal. But holding on to power in Rome required more than just strategic appointments and legal maneuvering. It meant navigating the personal and public controversies that came with Pope Alexander VI's reign. Controversies that would soon put the family at the center of some of the most infamous scandals in papal history. Alexander VI wasted no time turning his papacy into a family enterprise. From the start, he broke with the tradition of quietly hiding papal offspring, and instead placed his children at the center of his political strategy. Cesare and Lucrezia Borgia became his chief instruments, not just in Rome, but across the patchwork of Italian power. This wasn't just favoritism, it was methodical. Alexander used his position to arrange marriages and titles, weaving his family into the alliances that kept him in control. Lucrezia's marriages were especially calculated. Her first union with Giovanni Sforza was designed to link the Borgias with the powerful Sforza family of Milan. When that alliance lost its value, Alexander orchestrated an annulment, claiming the marriage was never consummated. Giovanni Sforza, humiliated, retaliated by spreading a rumor that Lucrezia was involved in incest with her father and brother. No credible evidence supported the charge, but the story stuck, feeding the Borgia reputation for depravity. Alexander's approach to power didn't stop at manipulating marriages. Cesare, originally made a cardinal, soon left the church to become a military leader. This move wasn't just about personal preference, it was a shift in the Borgia strategy. Cesare's rise was marked by violence and ambition. When Lucrezia's second husband, Alfonso of Aragon, became politically inconvenient, the alliance with Naples fell apart. Alfonso was ambushed on his way back to the Vatican, wounded, then strangled in his bed by agents loyal to Cesare. The message was clear: alliances with the Borgias could end abruptly, and betrayal was often fatal. These tactics, while not unique in Renaissance Italy, were carried out with a boldness that set the Borgias apart. Alexander VI's willingness to use his children as pawns and to dispose of allies when necessary drew sharp criticism, even in an era accustomed to political scheming. His papacy became a symbol of open nepotism and moral compromise, and the lines between personal ambition and papal responsibility blurred in full view of the public. The most infamous episode of Alexander's reign, the Banquet of Chestnuts, encapsulates how far the spectacle went. According to Johann Burchard, the Vatican's master of ceremonies, Alexander hosted a party in the papal palace featuring 50 courtesans and a contest of sexual prowess. While Burchard's diary describes naked courtesans and a virility contest, later scholars caution these reports may exaggerate a scandal already fueled by Borgia enemies. Still, the story spread quickly, reinforcing the image of a pope who was not only corrupt, but openly flaunted his excesses. Despite the rumors and outrage, Alexander VI was an effective political operator. He navigated the shifting alliances of Renaissance Italy with skill, leveraging marriages, betrayals and favors to keep his family at the center of power. But this effectiveness came at a cost. The resentment he bred among rivals and former allies grew deeper with each maneuver. Every calculated move brought short-term gains, land, wealth, and influence, but also sowed distrust and set the stage for future backlash. Cesare's transformation from cardinal to military commander gave the Borgias a new kind of power, one rooted in force as much as in diplomacy. While Alexander negotiated, Cesare enforced. Stories of Cesare's ruthlessness, executions, reprisals, and the elimination of rivals began to circulate, and the family's reputation for violence became as notorious as their scandals. The combination of Alexander's political cunning and Cesare's brutality made the Borgias formidable, but it also made them targets. By the end of Alexander II's reign, the Vatican had become a stage for both remarkable ambition and public outrage. The Borgia name was now synonymous with corruption, scandal, and a willingness to break any rule for power. Yet for all the controversy, the family's grip on Rome was undeniable, at least for a while. But power in Renaissance Italy was never secure for long. The next chapter belongs to Cesare, whose ambition and ruthlessness would push the Borgia legacy even further, and bring new dangers that neither he nor his father could fully control. Cesare Borgia's story isn't just about violence or scandal, it's about how far someone will go when ambition is the only thing that matters. Though never proven, rumors linked Cesare to Juan's stabbing in 1497, a turning point that thrust Cesare into his brother's role. The sudden vacancy meant Cesare could finally escape the cardinal's robes he'd never wanted, and step into the world of military and political power, a world he was far better suited for. From the start, Cesare's path was shaped by his father's strategy: Pope Alexander VI had placed Cesare in the church for practical reasons, but it was clear to everyone, especially Cesare himself, that he was restless and ill-suited for a religious life. When Juan was alive, Cesare was boxed in, forced to watch his brother take the lead as the family's military figure. But Juan's death changed the game. Cesare wasted no time trading his cardinal's hat for armor and command. He was officially released from his vows, and in 1498, he was granted the title Duke of Valentinois by the King of France, his first step toward building a domain of his own. With his new title, Cesare set out to make his mark on central Italy. He became captain general of the church's armies and, with his father's backing, took on the job of pacifying the region. His campaigns were fast, calculated, and ruthless. Chroniclers record that Cesare allegedly used crossbow practice on captured prisoners in Rome's dungeons, a grim display of intimidation that left little doubt about his methods. He didn't just defeat his enemies, he made examples of them. Towns that resisted faced harsh retribution, while those that submitted found themselves under a strict but effective rule. Cesare's ambition was always bigger than just serving his father. He wanted a principality of his own, a legacy that would outlast the shifting politics of the papacy. In 1501, he was named Duke of Romagna, and his conquests rapidly expanded. He absorbed city after city, using a mix of military force, strategic marriages, and calculated betrayals. Cesare demanded absolute loyalty from those around him, and the consequences for disloyalty were immediate and brutal. His ability to inspire both fear and respect set him apart from other warlords of the time. It wasn't just his enemies who took notice. Niccolò Machiavelli, the Florentine diplomat and political theorist, met Cesare during his campaigns and was fascinated by his approach to power. Machiavelli later devoted Chapter 7 of The Prince to Cesare's tactics as a model of ruthless statecraft. What impressed Machiavelli wasn't Cesare's morality, far from it, but his effectiveness. Cesare understood that in the chaos of Renaissance politics, stability could only be achieved through decisive, sometimes merciless action. He built alliances when useful, broke them when necessary, and always kept his eye on the bigger picture, a Borgia dynasty, independent from the whims of Rome. But as quickly as Cesare rose, the ground beneath him began to shift. The power he wielded depended almost entirely on his father's support and the resources of the papacy. In August 1503, Pope Alexander VI died suddenly. At nearly the same moment, Cesare himself was struck by a severe illness, possibly malaria, which left him weakened and unable to act. Without his father's backing, Cesare's enemies, many of whom he had driven into exile, returned to reclaim their cities and settle old scores. He tried to influence the next papal election but failed to prevent the rise of Julius II, a determined enemy of the Borgias. Stripped of resources and surrounded by old rivals, Cesare's grip on his territories evaporated. He was forced into exile, his ambitions for a lasting Borgia principality undone almost overnight. In the end, Cesare died far from the palaces and battlefields where he'd made his name, killed in a minor skirmish in Spain. His body was buried in obscurity, his dream of founding a dynasty lost to the same ruthless politics he had once mastered. Still, the shadow of Cesare's ambition lingered over the Borgia name. As the family's fortunes collapsed, one final infamous gathering would mark their last moment at the center of power, a dinner that would become the stuff of legend and rumor, and a symbol of everything the Borgias had come to represent. On the 18th of August 1503, during a dinner at the Vatican, Alexander VI was struck down with fever. While malaria was rampant that year, rumors swirled that he'd been poisoned. Cesare, also seriously ill, managed to recover and briefly held on to power under the next pope, Pius III. But as soon as Julius II took the papal throne, Cesare's fortunes collapsed. He escaped Rome and sought refuge with Francis Charles VIII, but his influence never recovered. That same banquet that birthed rumors of poison also marked the start of the Borgias' unraveling, from unparalleled ascendancy to an ignominious end. Their story remains a vivid lesson on the dangers of unchecked ambition and the fragility of power. If you found this investigation into the Borgias revealing, consider subscribing for more hidden histories.